Well, I want to start with the guys on the Grassroots because they share something a little in common with the Monkees in that they didn't write a lot of their songs, or not too many of them, but they did struggle with that with the record companies and the opportunity to want to be songwriters. So I want to ask you guys, and whoever wants to answer, what makes a good song, and how do you know when somebody's given you a good recording, a good composition? Yeah.
I'll take that. Are we on here? Yeah.
There you go.
Well, you know, it's all about the hook, actually. If you don't hear it in the first 15 seconds or so, something jumps out. And that's a producer's job, of course. And we were lucky early days on, great writers, great producers. But it's really about the hook. You know, it's not about processing or auto-tuning, things like that. It's if those first few seconds of the song jump out of that radio and you go, yeah, well, you want to know the rest of it. And that's really, I think that's the essence of a great pop song. Lyrics matter. You got to tell a story, of course, some sort of story, whether it be love or just life in general. But I think that's really the basis. From there, where you go, it's up to the artist and the producer.
Was there a difference because you guys crossed from the 60s to the 70s, and you had some great hits in the early 70s as well. Was there a difference in the vibe when you play those songs live versus the 60s or the 70s? Did it feel different to you?
I would say they get a little bit rockier, a little bit more punch.
In the 70s?
In the 70s,
okay.
Yeah, it just kind of evolves from a little more folky, relaxed, sing-song kind of a thing to a little bit more energy. You can start getting into Temptation Eyes, and sooner or later, and it starts getting a little rockier, a little heavier.
Million Years, fantastic tunes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, too, last night, I loved your show here in this lounge, and fantastic.
We loved it, too. It was great.
I think I mentioned I couldn't get a seat, so I was hiding behind the pole over there so that nobody would be blocked by my body, but really enjoyed it. But we noticed that you guys slipped in a couple of songs that were very grassrootish. I remember hearing last night you did Don't Put Your Love, Hamilton, Joe, Frank, and Reynolds, but it fit right in. Can you tell me the reason you guys plugged that?
That actually was written for the Grassroots, and Rob used to say that was one of our, ooh, we should have taken that one. You know, there's a couple of songs, there was a couple of them that were so similar to our vibe. The other one,
the other one was Love Grows, right?
Love Grows. Yeah, they just seem to fit right in with what we do, and really you just don't blink an eye. You think, oh, that's another Grassroots song. And we were talking, you're a DJ like you.
You and I were talking about this backstage, that last night Bo Bice was referring to the Blood, Sweat, and Tears songs as the audience members saying, are you guys going to do 25 or 6 to 4? We love that song. And Vehicle and all.
Yeah.
So
my wife said the same thing. We saw the show last night. She walked in, she goes, yeah, I want to hear 25 or 6 to 4. I said, no, honey, that's Chicago. And sure as hell, that's what Bo said at the end of the show. He goes, well, I get all these people asking me for 25 or 6 to 4. They actually did play a couple of tunes, cover tunes.
Yeah, they did. Did you ever play on a song with the band that you knew instantly was going to be huge, and how did it feel?
No, I was going to make a comment on what Mark said about whether you know or not. We don't have a clue whether it's going to be a hit or not. We were given lots of songs that we turned down that became big hits for other bands. Duh. So you don't really know. You just don't know for sure. You go with your gut feeling, and then, I think Mark might have some secret.
Well, when I said we know, I meant they know, is what I actually
Yeah, they know. We should have asked them.
Well, that's fantastic, and I want to get over here with the Guess Who, and I want to talk to you, Gary. You told me that some of the songs that you enjoyed playing the most with the Guess Who are No Time and Undone and Laughing. What is it about those songs?
Well, they're so diverse in sound. You go from Undone to No Time to American Woman. That's kind of a stretch from a quasi-jazz tune to almost a really hard rock tune. So for a player, you get quite a different feel in all of them. So,
As a drummer, is there a Guess Who song that you just can't wait to drum on?
you know, I've been in the band for 53 years. So It really goes in cycles. I'd be sitting there one night and playing These Eyes and going, oh no, not again. And then,
Not again.
And
Okay.
then maybe a week later I'll go, wow, what a great song. So, you know, people don't realize when you play them that often, it changes all the time, you know. And you have to I kind of have a game with myself. How well can I play this song tonight? I don't mean changing it, but I mean with what kind of feel can I play this song that will make it excellent?
And what was your reaction the first time hearing Guess Who song on the radio driving around? I love band members when they talk.
You mean Shakin' All Over?
Okay, that was 65, right? That was the
right.
original band.
Well, I think, I'm not sure, but I think we were on tour with, who was it? The group from Detroit, the girls. The Ronettes.
The Ronettes?
Or somebody like that, yeah.
The Exciters,
Yeah.
the Supremes.
The Crystals.
And I think, we were traveling all over the place and we heard it on the radio. And of course, being, musicians from the small city of Winnipeg, how possible would that be to have a hit record? So it was quite exciting. Of course, we listened to all the radio in the United States, and these gentlemen up here, we played all their songs before we had our hit songs.
You're saying the Rascals?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Every one of them, so.
Joe, I just wanted to just comment something Gary said. It's talking about the songs and, do you get sick of playing a certain song? I think that also is the mark of a quality song, is that you can play it hundreds and hundreds of times, and if it's a good song, there's still something in it for you as a musician to get out of it. I know Felix's stuff, and I lived with the album that had No Time and Undone. Talk about playing other people. I played along with that record. I'm a drummer also. I played along with that record religiously. Every fill you played, they're just great songs. You can't wear them out.
And as drummers, who inspired you guys? Because you came up a little after the time of Ringo Starr, but there's some great drummers.
For
in the
me,
jazz
I
era.
started playing in 1949, so.
Wow.
There was only Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller, and so I was really a jazz drummer before I was a drummer.
How about Joe?
And just simply put, I'm just talking. Gary is one of my favorite drummers. Period.
Yeah.
And the way he plays songs, I just love the way he plays on all those records.
And since we're doing the story behind the songs, let me ask either Jim or Gary, can you tell us what American Woman is really about?
Sure.
Because as a kid, I used to play the 45 until it faded out and you couldn't hear it anymore. And I was waiting for that secret message.
Sure. Well, the American Woman song has nothing to do with American women.
I'm so sorry to let you ladies know that.
American Woman was the Statue of Liberty. At a time when your country was involved in this extremely unpopular war, and as young guys from outside of the country, young, naive, brash, dumb, we shot our traps off. And the song was a result of being young and inexperienced and not understanding the politics of the world. But once again, the song had nothing to do with American women. It was the Statue of Liberty was a symbol of America and the unfortunate war that you were involved in.
In fact, I married an American woman, so.
You're off the hook, Gary. You're off the hook.
I was only engaged to 2.
You have to write a couple extra songs for that.
And then I went home.
Okay. When you perform American Woman, do you do that the song in front of it, the slow piece leading up to?
No. We do. We kind of. It's funny. Musicians like to play, and we used to have 8 and 10 minute songs in the old days.
That means you only get 6 or 8.
So
10
we
songs.
really take the first part of American Woman and we play kind of a jam before we go into the song. So it gives the guys a chance to stretch out and play a little bit. We also do that with Shakin' All Over at the end of the song, So that's really what we do with those two. And then we do the polka version of it, and so we have to have a good time.
Can you let us know when that's going to happen in the set, in case we have to use the restroom?
You bring your lederhosen, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Felix, my man. You know, when I first heard about the Flower Power Cruise and the logo, I saw the logo and I realized what was going to happen. And then I thought of the 3 songs of the Rascals that were just perfectly fit for this cruise. Groovin', People Gotta Be Free, Good Lovin', all #1 hits. And I don't know if you know, but you guys were the backing band for Joey D and the Starlighters, right?
Kind of. Hey, you guys are ready for anything out here, ain't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let it go,
I heard-
Felix. Give it all.
I tell you, I heard a lot about you. You guys are having a good time here, aren't you? Well, we're gonna have a good time tonight. I promise you. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
6:30. You guys are playing at 6:30 in the
6:30.
Celebrity tonight. So talk to me about songwriting, because you've written some masterpieces. You're in the Songwriter Hall of Fame. Of course, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member. And being a Beatle guy, you toured with Ringo in the All-Star Band in 1995, so had a chance to see you do a couple of your tunes. But take me through the songs, and you and I have talked about this before. Groovin' on a Sunday.
Well, you know, yeah, I explain a lot of this in the show, but you know the first word that comes to mind when you write a song? Love. That's it. If you're in love, it's easy to write a song. And you know, the converse of that is true. If you're real sad, too, sometimes it's easy to write a song, too. But I don't write too many of those. Because I'm a happy guy.
Yes.
But that's the truth. You know, you find someone or something that makes you really, really like happy, and you say, I'm going to tell everybody about that. I want you all to know how that feels. And sometimes the people go like, feels pretty good. Feels good.
With People Gotta Be Free, because it was 1968, we had the assassination of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy and all that, and it was a difficult time. We talked about American women, American woman. Can you tell me, People Gotta Be Free? It had a really awesome, positive message, and can you tell us how you came up with that song?
Well, the story is really, I was working for Bobby Kennedy's campaign at the time, and I was seeing this lady who was actually there when that horrible assassination happened, and it just snapped something in me. I don't know what happened, but I said, you know, we've got to say something. You know, much like you guys felt. You got to say something because, you know, people are listening to us for better or for worse. So let's say something. And that's what I wrote down, and the record company went absolutely bananas and said, don't you dare say that.
Wow,
because,
right.
you know, they didn't want to lose audience, you know, because after all, you know, we're not supposed to do that, I guess, on record. We're supposed to make money for these guys. Oh, gee, how could I forget that?
Yeah, but a #1 made them plenty of money.
Well,
so.
they were very happy.
Yeah.
And what I was so proud of is that it was #1 in all the places of the world that were like oppressed. Like in those days, it was #1 in Berlin, you know, in Germany there, in South Africa, in Hong Kong. You know, it was a very cool feeling to say, you know, when they knocked that wall down, you know, in Berlin, you heard on the radio, all the world over. I said, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you for writing it. You can't watch television with a 60s montage and not hear People Gotta Be Free, so thank you. Thank you for writing that song. But you mentioned, you know, a good song has to be about love. A good one called Good Lovin' kind of gets it done too, right? That was the #1 hit as well.
Yeah, that was a song that from the first, we didn't write that song, should make that clear. That was one that we because as everybody knows here, when you started working in those days, you did covers. You did everybody else's song because believe me, they were not interested in hearing a darn thing you wrote. Until the Beatles. And Bob Dylan. And them Stone guys. And then all of a sudden people said, wow, you know, maybe you should just have brains too, you know, wow. So, but they really opened. See, a lot of people don't believe musicians have brains. I mean, it's very true.
Do you want to sing American Woman for us? Okay. So, Good Lovin', yeah, that, and obviously that's one of those songs that starts with the count in. Was that done on purpose? 1, 2, 3, Good Lovin'?
But, you know, from the first time we played that song, people got up and danced. So, I don't know, are they allowed to dance when we play?
What, are you kidding me? The whole thing is about dancing.
I'm going to hold you to that because you see what I used to say on stage is when you play music in the clubs, if people don't dance, they don't drink. And if they don't drink, then we don't get hired back.
Wow. Not just behind the songs, but behind the venues, too.
So when they see you up there dancing, they say, that's a great band. Look at them drinking. Those guys are really good.
Lonely Too Long is your song, right? I've Been Lonely Too Long? So tell us about that, because that's about, sounds like it's about lost love, right? Or love.
Well,
not
no, it was about the beginning of love. You know, I've been lonely too long. You know, in the past they've come and gone. I feel like I can't go on. But anyway, that's all for tonight. We're going to do that all tonight. Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't want to give away too many of the stories today. And which is the song that's the most fun to sing for you and the Felix Cavaliere's Rascals?
Well, you know, I think these gentlemen mentioned it before. You know, most musicians who are on stage really like to play. They really like it. I mean, you know, I noticed that, you know, a lot of my friends who are insurance agents and bankers and lawyers, they all play. And the reason for that is because you're right. It's a lot of fun to play. Everybody here will tell you that. You know, so when we get up there, especially if you have a bunch of guys that really like the music and love to do it, everything is just joyous. I mean, that's all I'm gonna tell you. And what I try to do, I get in a lot of trouble for it, but I try to make everybody sing. I think that you know, we turn the lights down so nobody sees who's singing. You know, everything's cool. We don't know it's you. And we do little bits of songs, you know, and people, their faces just light up, you know, because they know the music. I know Peter Noon does that, too. He made you sing quite a bit, right? Absolutely.
That's part of the fun of being here on the Flower Power Cruise. I want to ask you guys, because everybody in the band pretty much started off with the 2-minute hit record, and I know the Guess Who, your songs you mentioned, you know, could go 8 or 10 minutes long. When did you realize that it was okay to go crazy and extend the length of a song? The Beatles did it with Hey Jude, but I mean, certainly the Guess Who did it, Gary.
Yeah, I think what happened is when we had These Eyes as really the first hit record with RCA, you know, it was like 2-3 minute song.
344, 18-second intro.
Well,
I played
we
it
were
many times.
and then they said to us, we wanted to release No Time right after that. We didn't want to be a ballad band. You know, we wanted to play up-tempo stuff. And they said, no, give us one more. And so Laughing was written in 15 minutes on a bus on Vancouver Island. And the flip side, which was Undone, which was a kind of a weird flip side, but they both charted at the same time. Then we were allowed, they said, after that, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, because you had hits.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And we talked about American Woman. What was Share the Land? Was that like the end of the peace and love generation? Was that?
That was written by Kurt and Burton on a crossing, I believe, from England on either the Queen Mary or the Queen Elizabeth boat coming from England to North America. So that was part of the Share the Land album. Mm-hmm. And
I still remember the cover of that album.
yeah, we had gone from having one guitar player. I had the idea that we had two guys in mind for the band, Kurt Winter and Greg Lescue, and couldn't really decide. So I said to Burton, why don't we have two lead guitar players, which a lot of the Southern bands, Allman Brothers and so on, were having in the United States. And so that's how that album was written.
You know, you can't talk about the Guess Who and what comes to mind, American Graffiti and Wolfman Jack and Clap for the Wolfman, is one of the most fun songs to ever be played on the radio, 1974. Tell me how you procured Wolfman Jack and I know, and he was the most generous, warm guy, wasn't he?
Well, that song was really a jam that we created at sound checks, and it wasn't called Clap for the Wolfman. It was called Clap for Napoleon.
You couldn't get Napoleon, obviously.
Yeah. Felix, what do you think?
Yeah.
No?
Which guy?
So, you know, we kind of worked with it, and it became, you know, listening in Winnipeg in the wintertime at 40 below zero, we used to get these stations beaming in from New Mexico and all of those, and Wolfman Jack was on it. So we were always listening to him, and so we decided to make it Clap for the Wolfman and get him actually to do the narration in the background, and he was more than happy to do it. And eventually he went on tour with us for a whole tour and came out, and he was kind of the MC of the show. And then when we did the song, he came out, and God rest his soul, he's now watching us here today.
That session, Clap for the Wolfman, were his parts scripted, or was it?
No, he was in the studio with a couple of young ladies.
Yeah, we heard them on the record, I think, actually.
And his cigarette package of joints, which were constant companions of his, and it was kind of like 10 or 20 people in the control room, and it was kind of like a party, really. And that album was done. That record was done in Nimbus 9 Studios in Toronto, where Alice Cooper recorded his last couple of albums with Bob Ezrin as producer.
Joe?
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to mention something, just in a broader sense. We were talking when we first sat down about the types of songs and stuff. Just the 60s and 70s songs, to me, the arrangements and the simple fact that the tempo changes, things that were accepted on the radio as pop music, you would never hear an arrangement like, for instance, I saw Blood, Sweat, and Tears last night, and the song Spinning Wheel, a huge hit. It goes through, it's da 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 da, and Undone, a flute solo on a song like Stevie Wonder's not For Once in My Life, For Once in My Life, a complete stop and a rubato, no tempo, back to another. You just don't, if it's not a total groove through the whole song, that alone, that distinction, I think, is very unique to the 60s and 70s songs.
And also,
all of these bands here. And people sing along with them, and they know these tempo changes and mood changes. It would never fly today on the radio.
And also, to hand it to you drummers, you actually had to drum the whole song. Now they can sample, copy, paste it down the line on Pro Tools.
Yeah.
So
very different.
It was a lot different, and a lot of songs were recorded straight through to analog tape. Is that right? I mean, there wasn't as much overdubbing and piecing together as today. So, tell me, you guys in the Grassroots, I want to ask you a little bit about Rob Grill, and obviously it was a terrible loss about 5 years ago. But what was his spirit like in the band and gathering everybody together and playing?
I remember specifically just his connection with everybody here. He was the most charismatic. He had that magic to just draw everybody in. I mean, that was part of it. I mean, that part was very important to me. And he had the tone to his voice. He was a rock star, and he just had a great sound to his voice. So that was kind of what I remember about Rob.
What pre-show ritual do you guys have, or even did you have with Rob?
You don't want to know.
Yeah, that's why we're here, Dusty.
I think it's actually legal on cruise ships. That's why we enjoy being here. Our
International waters, we're good?
Yeah.
In 1985, we used to sing a couple songs before we went on stage.
Like right backstage?
Yeah.
Okay.
We would work on harmonies and sing those.
And in sound checks, I know Paul McCartney and other artists, they don't do their own songs in sound check or necessarily the show songs. They play covers and Elvis. And what is your sound check like?
Our songs.
It's your songs? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what
that's what it's for, really.
Front of house, mounted guy, that's what they're working with. So we want to sound as great as possible when we play. So that's what we want the engineers to work on. So, Paul McCartney's carrying his own guys.
Right.
We're working with the crew here, which is great, so they have to know what we're doing.
Fair enough. Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I was just going to say, give them what they're going to get that night instead of a big surprise, sound-wise, guitar sound.
And
we don't
Felix,
have any flute solos.
Your music changed a lot because when you were influenced by the old R&B and coming up, and then you mentioned that you loved the Beatles. So where did you decide to become, which part of that music made you the writer, and which songs do you write from? Which part of your life? you know, the early.
Well, you know, I had the good fortune of growing up in New York City, which has some of the finest people on earth. We also had Alan Freed. See, Alan
Right.
Freed came from Cleveland to New York. WINS 1010 on
1010
your
wins,
dial.
yeah.
So I was very fortunate to hear the very beginning of what we now know as rock and roll.